I should almost start the program like this now, because I've changed my tone of voice and I'm waving my arms around, which the people on the podcast can't see, and say nothing is happening, because there is nothing. Wigan aren't being sold. Ian Lanigan has said today.
It's not a story, he says.
I mean, his son watches this program. I used to do. I don't know if he's stopped watching. He might tell us. He might tweet us and tell us.
He's not going to have his legacy given away just like that.
Owning, Rugby League's most successful brand. They've rebranded because they've got a new badge and everything.
What I think is interesting. I mean, I don't think we need to get into any of the detail of private equity finance, because it's an ongoing story anyway, and it's been heavily reported. In fact, you can read some of it in the new issue of blah 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 out this Friday.
Out this week, yeah.
But it's interesting that the pendulum seems to be swinging a little bit, and whereby there was one club that was vociferously against and isolated, which then became 2, is now sort of 6. And you just think, change is in the air. I don't know which way it's going to go. I'm not saying who should or shouldn't be kept in employment. It's not our province to do so. I wouldn't dream of doing it. But I think there is a growing realisation that governance change is in the air.
Changes are being made which go against my principles, as someone once said. If you know who said that, well done.
Scully, wasn't it?
He's still around.
Yes, he's preparing for his next IOP, which he's got next week. He sends his best to all our viewers and listeners. I think he was touched by the fact that a lot of people after our show last week said, bugger off you two, where's Scully? No, some very kindly were asking after him. And as again, we quite rightly said, if he ain't got Wi-Fi, he ain't coming on. But he did want everybody to know that he's still searching for that 50th cap.
People ask where Mark is. He's still drying off. He was at Newcastle on Saturday for their game against Southampton in the Premier League. And I think he's still drip drying at the moment as we speak.
I think he was up all night watching that fabulous event that is the Super Bowl. So
I mean, it was a bit rubbish last night, to be honest, because the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't want to say much like some teams in grand finals, didn't turn up. I mean, at least they won it the year before.
Yeah, gave away too many penalties. I only watched it till half time. But what was interesting about that is how much of the world was talking about an event they know very little about. And a really, really interesting thing, and we don't mind promoting other podcasts because we're equitable like that. Jonathan Liu was on Progressive Rugby League podcast, and I would recommend anybody who gets the chance to find that and listen to it to do exactly that. But he was talking about this propensity for events, that the only appeal now outside of those who love a sport, which is dwindling, is more and more event-based stuff that can get the transient involved for a little while, and they're not going to buy season tickets. And so many people are on social media talking about the Super Bowl without really having an allegiance to either of the teams, but wanting to be part of at least watching the beginning of it because it's big. We need to take a leaf out of that book and promote likewise.
At least we got Mark Chapman. At least we've got him
with his glasses.
With his glasses and his socks he was talking about. I mean, I don't know if we can get any of the other people off there to talk about Rugby League. But no, they too many penalties. How many times do you see that in a game? Didn't adapt to the refereeing. Tom Brady, greatest of all time in all of sport, according to the Americans today. So
yeah, still hasn't won as many finals as Jamie Peacock, so he's got a way to go.
So the Kevin Sinfield of the NFL. If only, of course, Tom Brady had gone to the CFL rather than Tampa Bay once he left the New England Patriots. I don't think there's anything else to say about the Super Bowl. I don't think.
No, I merely mention it because
it's a big thing.
It's a big thing, but it shouldn't be. When you look at it, it's quite an insular thing. But people all around the world were tuning in or talking about it, or made sports bulletins. Even on local radio here this morning, the result was announced.
The Superb Owl. We can always learn from other sports. We can always learn from what they do and try and make things better, because we should make everything an event. And that's the problem, is it? What is the event about the Magic Weekend? We've said this for years. There is no event about it, is it? It's all the teams playing in one place, but there's no half-time show. There's no people singing the national anthem for half an hour beforehand.
But I think
before, get a band on or something.
What's really interesting about that, and I think last night again proved it, is that we're looking at the fixtures and saying, oh, the things that are in jeopardy are things like Magic Weekend and the Bash, and actually they're the things that should be first on the fixture list, because they are events. And if you have got everybody in one place and you can see all the action over the course of 2 afternoons, and you can build other things around it, like whatever, all the things we've talked about in the past, to make it the sort of thing that is almost unignorable, then that should be the first thing on your fixtures, and not your last, not the one that's ditched.
I know we started off by not talking about Rugby League, but I'm going to continue in that vein, because one of the ways I would sell the Bash, and no one's going to ask me because I'm not a marketing expert. I've got a Dean A-level business studies. Would be, because I watch a lot of YouTube, because TV is rubbish these days. And we've become addicted to watching people walk around the back streets of Blackpool, which, if anyone's been to Blackpool, there's some not quite salubrious places, is that the word I'm looking for, in Blackpool. But the people who host these videos of them just wandering around and pointing a camera at things are quite entertaining people. I'll be getting them to promote the Bash, because they've got thousands of people watching them just walk around Blackpool. And here's the big thing at the last week. Everyone got excited because the cricket's on Channel 4, right? England are on Channel 4. First terrestrial cricket coverage since the Ashes in 2005. So 1 million years ago now. And everyone's getting excited. Despite the fact, of course, that, from what I understand, and I haven't done the research, kids don't watch TV, certainly not at 4 a.m. They watch YouTube and TikTok and Instagram video and whatever. So it doesn't matter to them if the cricket's on Channel 4 or Sky. They'll probably see it on their phone. And cricket's got the same problem we've got now, because if England go on and win this test series, and they may well win this first test, where are we going to watch them next? Behind a paywall. We don't even know when the England team's going to play next. I know probably at the World Cup opening ceremony. But apart from that, we don't know when we're going to see them next. We almost have to look at the world slightly differently. We're getting very upset about this new TV deal and how it's going to upset everyone and this and that and the other. There's never been so many different ways of consuming media than we have today. And yes, the money's important, but we almost have to think a little bit smarter.
Well, I think the other thing that I've noticed through all of this period of what is nominally called lockdown, still seeing a lot of people about for a lockdown, is the fact that clearly, if you love sport, you take more of an interest in things that normally perhaps you wouldn't. But the one thing that I think Premiership football has done really well, it's a hell of a lot of things it does badly, but is that if they split their product across a number of media platforms, but if you get an inkling that something amazing has happened, your social media has it almost before you know it. So somebody says there's a game on Amazon Prime, you don't subscribe to Amazon Prime, but suddenly on your timeline, which you may be glancing at while you're watching the Great British Bake Off, it says there's been the most phenomenal goal scored at Goodison Park. Within 2 seconds of scrolling down your timeline again, there is a clip of that goal being scored at Goodison Park. Now, they don't feel as though they're giving away something that Amazon Prime have paid a lot of money for. They feel that by sticking it out there immediately, they're drawing in more and more people who then might at some point down the line subscribe or watch a whole game. But they've absolutely nailed this idea of the highlight package, or the defining moment, or the minute of excellence. And whether you support a team or not, I defy you not to watch it. And I found that we don't do that. We just, at the moment, maybe we're not a big enough sport to do that. I get all of that, but that is another area that we have to actually embrace. And it's all very well saying, Sky have got all the rights, and Betfred, part of their deal is that they get to put it out, 2 days later as part of that. No, we have to have a greater degree of immediacy, I think, and we get some amazing moments that nobody sees. They get what you might call some wow factor moments, and it's everywhere. You can't avoid it. That's how it's going as well.
Thank goodness for Fred, because he's sponsoring all 3 Challenge Cups, the women's, men's and the wheelchair Challenge Cups, which The draw is made later this week. Thanks for reminding me earlier. We have obviously got an impending problem in the fact that the wind seems to be going the way of gambling advertising, might be going the way of cigarette advertising. But it's not just a problem for us. So I think too many people are getting a bit, oh no, what are we going to do? Blah, blah, blah. It's not just rugby league that's going to have that issue coming. And lest we forget, football has that problem to a much bigger extent than we do. So, yes, it's going to take some creativity.
Again, but I was thinking about this. We've been through this before. Everything has historical precedent. And if you think about the sponsors of the sport in the mid-80s going forward, you would have thought that when cigarette advertising was banned, that would be the end of rugby league. You know, we were Silk Cut, we were Regal, we were 200 cigs in the press box before you even sat down and got your pen out. There's a roaring trade in swapping cigarettes in those days. But you couldn't imagine that rugby league would survive without the backing of cigarette companies. But it did. It found, it forced it to look at other avenues, and we managed to. And I think betting is going to offer us a similar sort of a problem, although it won't disappear overnight. There will be a period of transition, and it will be more to do with blatant advertising rather than they won't be able to have any involvement whatsoever. It just be you won't have names on the front of the shirts, you won't have competition sponsored by, but there will be still the ability to have a bit of input, I think, if they still want to invest in it. But I look at the World Cup and some of the sponsors that they're bringing in, and the classic one is their headline sponsor, Kazoo. They are now in rugby league. That I am sure that the commercial people that are involved in the sport are saying, well, when 2021's ended, there's going to be a chance when Betfred's sponsorship runs out for the Super League that you can get involved in that. And you look at, they're on a couple of football shirts. Every advert now between games has got them on it. They're moving into what are they sponsoring? So another sport. It wasn't netball, was it? Anyway,
something else. I don't know.
But the fact that we've managed to attract them because it's a world-class event means that we now need to find ways of attracting modern firms that are allied to our values and bring them in. It's not the end of the road just because we won't have access to betting companies. We just have to be a hell of a lot smarter and decide what actually it is we are offering them.
They are the principal partner of the controversial cricket competition,
darts.
The 100.
And darts. They've just sponsored a darts competition. I just remembered. Well, if they're getting into darts and the controversial cricket competition, and they're dipping a toe in the water for our World Cup, there is a potential partner there. Insurance companies. I think we've seen legal companies come along and invest in the World Cup. We shouldn't be thinking this is the end of the world. It's just moving us to a different domain, which actually might not be bad for us. But Betfred have been magnificent. I must say that, there were some people going, oh, they can't sponsor everything, it's not healthy. They are really great partners for this sport.
Yeah, they are sponsoring snooker as well, including 3 tournaments that I think are on ITV. So now known as the Kazoo series. I believe they used to be the Coral series. So you've got to get your ducks in a row, as you say, and at least we've got a warning that this is going to happen. Not that it's officially going to happen. It's not gone through Parliament or anything, but the winds of change appear to be blowing in that direction. So,
well, as they do as regards concussion, the government are now getting involved in setting up commissions to look at the effects of high contact sport and the legacy of that. Great that Stevie Ward, having been forced to retire, has been part of that. I think the second meeting involves representatives from the governing bodies of sports that are affected by it. I think that's really important that government does take a role in all of this. And the value of rugby league stock in those areas of influence has risen. There isn't anything much that's come out of this horrible period that we can cling on to and say, well, the world's in a better place. But I think rugby league's efforts in the community and ability to sit at high table and draw down resource is something that we should be not only proud of, but we should be thankful of the people at the top of the sport who are getting involved in that.
I will never do another interview like the one with Steve Ward after that 2017 grand final. It's up on YouTube for you to watch again because it's just a staggering thing. But his retirement and the retirement of George Burgess for different reasons are there to remind us just how hard the game is and how tough you have to be to play the game.
Yeah, and get off their back. I mean, some of the abuse that George Burgess got, we're the sport that value the people that play it. We think mental health is a vital part of what we do. We have wellness programs, Rugby League cares, and then somebody who barely could walk but managed to play 8 games for Wigan and struggled through all of them, turned up at training, was an absolute inspiration to the guys around him because they could see the pain he was in. Just got vilified. I mean, come on Rugby League, you're better than that.
It should be easy enough to find these people and just ban them, but it's the problem football's got at the moment as well, in so much as, and it's different. Abusing someone for having an injury and having to retire is different from racial abuse or homophobic abuse or whatever. I understand that. I'm not comparing the two necessarily. But the problem, football can say as much as you want about getting the government and social media companies to do things themselves. But when they, in themselves, the FA, do not ban players for racist abuse for as long as a supporter is banned, then the double standard is always there. It's like talking about referee abuse, and then no one ever gets booked, no one ever gets sent off, no one's ever banned, and then hold their hands up. Oh, why is the referee getting death threats? Why is that happening?
Yeah, well, if you're going to have a diversity board, which is a great idea, then you need to go through social media and pick out some of those who were so vehemently opposed to a diversity board and say, look, I'm sorry, but you're blocked.
I think I've blocked and muted most of those people now, sadly. Or not sadly, but...
we can be better. We can all be better.
Speaking of things that can be better, throwing it against the wall again. West Wales Raiders. They've not won many games in recent years, but they've made some big signings. And here to tell us about life in Wales and their signings and their hopes for 2021 is their head coach, joining us now, Aaron Wood.
First of all, how's life in West Wales at the moment for you? Obviously, we're all stuck in lockdown at the moment. How's life for you in the club?
It's good, man. It's a really good atmosphere, good vibe in the club. All the boys are pumped to be back. It's a good spot down here. There's a lot of things to see down in West Wales, the beach, and the community down here is awesome, mate. So everyone's pretty busy. Keeps everyone mentally fresh, so it's good.
Obviously, you took over at the start of last season, which didn't last too long. What are your hopes for this year with some big signings there?
Hopes. I just think improvement is the biggest thing I want to see in the players. Just improving. Obviously everyone wants to win. Hopefully we can win some games, which is why everyone plays. But just the development of the players on and off the field. That's sort of something that I can't wait to see, the development of players that have been here a while and have had that losing mentality. And now with a squad of we've got 28 players training, 29 players with more to come in. Mate, the competition's been crazy at training, so it's good.
We've been saying this is a tragic time and we should never lose sight of that. And a lot is made of the people that perform on the field and their high visibility. But you've just lost one of your founders, an Erin Gravel. I know that's come as a real blow to the club, and we should pay tribute to him and what he's done. And obviously, clearly, you know him a lot better than we do, but there's going to be a massive hole to fill down there.
Oh, 100%. It just shocked everyone, really. Like what we're seeing just before the last lockdown, we all had a beer together, the Gravesy, and the board and all that. We get together a lot of times. I've only known Gravesy for a year now, but like as I said, the community in the club's our family down here, so. It's just weird. It's just weird at the moment. I don't know how to explain. Like it's a figure that you see all the time at the game. He's in the background, but he's the forefront of the club as well. So it's just I don't know. I don't have any words at the moment. Just hopefully the family and that they know that we're thinking of them and we can help them out in any way we will. It's a massive loss for us, and I'm just shocked at the moment still.
Yeah, and one of the things the club have said is that when fans can come back in and there is a little bit more normality about the season, you'll find a way of paying due tribute to him, and obviously I think the whole of the Rugby League game will get behind you on that.
Oh, 100%. His name and what he's done, his legacy that he's done for the club, that will never be forgotten around here. There's the staff and the board and the club and everything's behind ideas, and we'll be pushing that for next year or for this year. Sorry, and he will never be forgotten in this club. He's a Raider man through and through. So we appreciate what he's done for the club, and he'll be remembered 100%.
And I would imagine he was one of the people behind the scenes that have been involved in your astonishing recruitment for 2021, not least at halfback. That partnership is probably not just the best in League One. It could arguably hold its own in the division above it. How have you managed to attract the likes of Gavin Henson and Rangi Chase to West Wales?
Gavin Henson was more the board. They had a friend who knew Gav. And, we approached Gav to come on board as a, sort of like a skill sort of coach, maybe helping out where we could use him in, he obviously wants to get into coaching later on in his life. The bloke's played in the biggest games in the world, hasn't he? Kicked goals in front of the biggest crowds. And he eventually just a little, they had a little chat, and then all of a sudden he's like, I wouldn't mind. I've always wanted to play. I wouldn't mind having a game. And then I've known Rangi since, 18 back in Australia. So I thought, I might as well give him a call, see what he's doing. Give him a call, and Rang said, yep, sweet, I'm in. And just them two, the last couple of weeks of training, it's just, you can just tell it's special. There's still a lot of work to be done because, obviously two different types of players, but I think they'll benefit from each other both, they'll be the sort of different styles, but it'll be perfect for what we need in our team,
I know that Wigan were after Gavin when he was a British Lion, and he very nearly signed for them as well. What is it about this game that attracts him? You say that he's always sort of wanted to play it, and he is at the back end of his career, but he can offer so much to a side like yours, where you've got quite a lot of local youngsters coming through as well that will look up to him.
Well, I just think he talking with him, he got a lot of in his career growing up, like obviously playing in that level. There was a lot of rugby league influence into defensive coaches. You see it now in the top game, and he liked and learnt a lot from those coaches. So I think that's what first attracted him. And obviously, Wales have had some famous people from this area leave rugby union to go and play back in the day, like Jonathan Davis and that. They've all gone up there. So he's just interested and loves everything about it. He's an ultimate professional, I annoy him a lot by messaging him all the time, trying to pick his brain as well. So he loves it. And, people say back in their career, I'll tell you what, he doesn't look like that. He's fit, he's humble, he's ready to rock and roll. He's looking good at the moment.
I was going to say, you mentioned bringing in a winning culture. Obviously, it's not been a club who's won lots of games in the past few seasons, but I guess bringing in names like that, there's got to be a big boost for the rest of the squad.
Oh, 100%. I think the boys have always had the what would you say, the ability. It's just key positions. They probably haven't been able to recruit key positions. You know yourself in any squad, any game at any level, halfback's one of the biggest positions that you need, isn't it? So that was one of my first things I wanted. I wanted a halfback, and then what better than an ex-Man of Steel, Rangi Chase, who he demands excellence from players. He's a leader out there. So that's the biggest thing. Once we got Gav and then Rangi, that was like two leaders. And up front we've got Morgan Evans, who's been around a while, who's fit, strong, workhorse. So Joe Burke's come on board. It's exciting times, and the recruitment not finished for this year, but obviously we're building for next year at the same time.
Do you think that the game as a whole is doing enough to harness the Welsh talent that there clearly is? Because it's one thing to look at these great names that will grab the headlines, but we all know the story of Regan Grace, age 13, never come across rugby league, suddenly gets picked up, plays in a Welsh development team, goes to St Helens, and now is arguably one of the best wingers that we've got. And you must have some other talent that you've identified around the West Wales area. But does the game do enough to promote that and bring it on and give it enough opportunity?
Yes and no, because I've been to a couple of the college games up in, I don't know how to pronounce it up there, but there's a lot of young kids. They've all signed to go up north, in the academy system and all that sort of stuff. It's a tough job down this way because you've got the Scarlets, you've got the Dragons, you've got Cardiff Blues. It's a very rugby union orientated sort of area. But I think over time, I think the schools, we need to get more into the schools around this area and just sort of build relationships with schools, which is what West Wales Raiders are trying to do. We're trying to, I think we've got to plan in the next couple of years to get an academy sort of team going, a women's team. This year we had an addition of the wheelchair team. I think it's a tough way to get it around in Wales, but I think over time you'll see it just gradually get bigger and bigger. It's a slow process down here, but it's everyone's working hard behind the scenes.
I think the other thing that perhaps we don't appreciate enough is that you also own your own facility, which means that income generation is totally under your control, and that makes you arguably one of the richer clubs in the division that you play in, if you can start attracting the right sort of players and crowds to go with it. How important is that you've actually got the most secure base to work from?
It's good. It's safe. It keeps everyone in a job. But at the end of the day, you don't want to be a club that goes all out one year and then the next year they've got no money. We see it as a financial, the financial backing behind the club. People, the players, the supporters, they all come back to the club. We have a club on the ground. We've got a lot of off-field businesses that keep, our club running. And I think they've done the right thing. They're not in it for the results on the field, as they say, straight away. They want the club to be around 20, 30 years' time. And that's a credit to the board and Andrew Thorne and Peter Tiffin behind the scenes and Gravs. That's their plan, and they're sticking by it. And obviously the on the field performances haven't come on, but if you see the books and everything around the back end of the field, we're stable. We didn't get any money from the RFL when they were giving out loans and handouts. We refused that, and we said we'll be right. So it's good. It's comfortable for the players knowing that they'll be paid every week, every month, and it's a good club to be involved in.
Almost doing things the wrong way around. We expect everyone to spend money on players and not worry about the future, but it seems that the foundations there are in the right place. What are you hoping for in this League One season? Obviously, I mentioned this earlier, but we've got a year now almost without a game. How ready are you to get back in action?
Oh, I think everyone's just crazy. Everyone just thinks football, breathes football. Rugby league, football over here is a different sport, but rugby league. I just think as a player, as a coach, as a fan, as a board member, as an owner, it'll just, it just give a sense of normality to life as it is at the moment. And I just think it'll be perfect. And, a lot of boys you see after we've been training a week now, you're going to see their clarity and their mental state is just skyrocket. They're excited. They want to be a part of it. It's I think everyone around the world just wants things to back normal, and rugby league's doing the right steps to get their product back on the screens and back on the field, and just got to make sure that the players, we try to look after them and minimise injuries, because it's been a year since they've been playing, and I don't think a lot of people have been training over that year. But just as long as we can keep the game healthy and back on the field, I think it's a great opportunity for the RFL.
I noticed that you haven't quite yet got a Welsh twang to your accent. I'm sure that is coming. But when you got the phone call saying there's a team over here that hasn't yet mastered the art of winning, but it does have a bit of potential, what was it that attracted you to up sticks and move halfway around the world and, in some respects, take on a thankless task?
Well, I'm based out of France. My wife and daughter are in France. I've been in France for the last 15 years. I was coaching the academy side there in Toulouse, and finished up there. And I've seen it, and I was like, didn't really know where West Wales was, to be honest. I thought it was up north somewhere. I didn't know where it was. And then just because I always talk to my father about things, and so there's an opportunity there. And he said, "Oh yeah, what have they done?" I said, "Well, they've won one game in 2 years." And he said, "Well, you can't do any worse than the other coaches." But then obviously, once you sit down and have a serious chat about the board with Andrew Thorne and Peter Tiffin about what they wanted from a club, I thought and they thought I was the right fit, and I could bring players in, and it's exciting. It's a challenge, and if if you're not in it for a challenge, you shouldn't be coaching or even playing. You always want to get the best out of players and the best out of yourself. So, I'm a young coach and I'm still learning, so it's a good place to learn.
Last one from me. West Wales used to be the South Wales Scorpions. One of their former players, Gerwyn Price, just gone on to be the World Darts Champion. Is there any other players in the squad there at West Wales at the moment who we should be thinking potentially in the future could be a world champion in snooker, darts, something other than rugby league? Any other secret talents in that squad?
There's a one boy, Saunders. He's a new recruit we got. He's a rugby union boy come across this year. He actually plays darts, or he did. He was I don't know what league they're in, but he was real high up in the darts. He's pretty handy. Rangi Chase, pretty good at ping pong as well. He might be an undercover ping pong champion. So all the boys have got their own little traits, and there's a couple of funny boys in the team as well. So they support the boys here supported Price in the darts. So we all watched, loved it. So it's good. The community down here, anyone that comes from this area, it's very they're very passionate about the people in this area, and it's great. It's a great environment.
I'm sure when crowds are back, he'll be down kicking a game off for you and be treated like royalty. But I guess just finally, it's going to be a really tough division this year. There's only 10 teams in it, and 3 or 4 of them were prepared to go up if necessary and put bids in to be championship clubs. So they've got more to prove, if you like. What's a realistic finishing position for West Wales? And if this is the year to get promotion and before the next television distribution is known, can you be in and amongst the sides at the top?
I don't know. It's a tough question. That it can all come. In a league like this, or in any league, you need a bit of luck. Hopefully, no injuries. If any teams get injuries this year, which can ruin your chances, can't it? Don't know. There's no pressure on us at all. Like a lot of teams say, "Oh, you've recruited all this." That could take a couple of weeks to gel in the game. You need the game time. I think the boys, if we can finish in the top 6 and get a bit of a playoff opportunity, you never know, and that's all I want. Once you're in that opportunity, anything can happen from there. It's a high pressure system, so it's a tough comp this year. There's a lot of good players in the League One. It's if you look at Burrow and all the teams up north, they've recruited very, very well. So, mate, we're just happy if we can win a couple of games and progress and be competitive is our main thing. We want to, the teams that beat us before, we want to be closer to them every year. So, I'm hopefully top 6 if that's the thing. But I'm a very positive person. So, if we get to the 6 and then we can go on from there, I'd love it. It'd be crazy.
Far too positive for us, Aaron. Far too positive for us. Very best of luck for the season. We wish you well. Obviously, hope everyone's staying safe down there in Wales, and hopefully we'll catch up with you later in the year.
No worries, guys. Anything you need from us at the players or from the Raiders, just give me a bell and I can hook you up down this way, or come down to a game when we open up, and we'll look after you.
Oh, we're on our way as soon as we're allowed.
Yeah, we'll look after you. Don't worry about that. We'll have a pint together.
Oh, don't tell Scully that. It's straight on there now. Aaron, thanks for your time. It's much appreciated.
No worries, guys. Thank you.
Speaking of abusing people on social media. Oh, it's not abuse. But when Gavin Henson's signing was announced for West Wales, I thought, I know I've tweeted things in the past about him, so let me go back and see what I've tweeted. And there was nothing offensive. It was all right. Just mainly, talking about the hype surrounding him and stuff. But listening to Aaron there, it sounds like he's definitely got stuck into playing for what has been the worst team in our competition. But it sounds like he's got stuck in and, he wanted to give it a go, and fair play to him for that.
Well, there's 2 things. One is, can he do it on the field? And Aaron was pretty confident that he could, and that he was having a major impact on the players in the squad, and that's fantastic. I think the other thing is like we spoke about earlier, you've got to find reasons for people to take an interest in what you're doing. Profile. I guarantee that when Gavin Henson makes his debut, no matter who West Wales are playing, even if it's raining and there's 200 people in the ground, there will be media. There will be, they will, if they're clever, harness the social media potential that him running out will have. There will be rugby union fans who admired Gavin Henson as a player in their game, tuning in either to see him succeed or fail in our game. We need to build on that. And yes, they do potentially have an incredibly exciting halfback partnership. They do have, even allowing for the tragedy of losing an Arwen Gravel, a club that seems self-sustainable, which in this day and age is astonishing. Potential is huge. The World Cup is huge for a club like West Wales, because again, if John Keir can galvanise the Welsh, who seem to be very, very dynamic in the way that organisation for Wales Rugby League is led at the moment, then there are real possibilities. He talked about women's team, wheelchair teams, all of that. I think, you can build on the back of a Gavin Henson, because if he can do it on the field and he can give you the avenues into the newspapers and the social media that you wouldn't normally get, it could be a defining season for them. And it might not be about whether they win promotion or make the playoffs, which clearly he thinks they can. It might just be about they could get more publicity than a lot of teams, perhaps even in Super League.
And that publicity could knock on to the national team, as you say. If he joined West Wales initially to do some coaching, I'm not saying put him in the Welsh squad for the World Cup. That might be a bit too far away. But it would not be a foolish idea to have him involved somehow in the coaching setup, even as a consultant or whatever, because he's got that name behind him and he's got that international experience.
Let's just hope he plays so well that if there are warm-up internationals, he can play. He can don the Welsh shirt. We can capitalise on the back of that. And if he can hack it, I'd pick him for the World Cup squad. He's got to prove himself, because there's some great Welsh players out there ahead of him. And he's not picked up a ball in anger at the moment. But why rule out the prospect of Gavin Henson playing in this World Cup?
I'm thinking, because I've no idea what I'm going to do this year with work or anything. I'm thinking I'm going to try and get to as much rugby league that I wouldn't usually see. So if West Wales are up here and I can get to a game, I might go watch them or whatever, and just try and expand my horizons a little bit in 2021. Hopefully I'll see a lot of the Women's Super League when that comes back at some point in the future.
Well, the good news is, confirmed in the new issue of out this week, that the RFL are applying for elite status for the competition, and that it should kick off in the middle of April.
Good.
As scheduled.
Good. We're all looking forward to it. We just I don't want to say normality, because I don't think normality is going to be a thing for a while, if ever. But just some things. Throw us a bone.
Yeah.
Throw us something. I'm trying to think of anything else that's happened. Before we get on to our next interview thing, Robert Elston, apparently, according to the Rugby League press, which now is just one newspaper, it seems, on a Monday, the trade press, he's looking for where the leaks are. The Super League, the board meetings are like a colander. And whatever happens in them gets leaked to the media somehow. I don't know how, because obviously I don't speak to anyone in the game, which is why I know nothing. Well, I don't know why people listen to this podcast. So no one, all these tittle-tattle, and it's not just Super League, because you remember when the story came out that Channel 4 were interested in Rugby League, and I see that's gone really well, hasn't it? Because you can't move for it now. Can't move for Rugby League on Channel 4 on all the channels. Rugby League everywhere. There
are Channel 4 cameras outside every stadium, just waiting for the season to start. I've seen them. No, I
haven't. And when that story was leaked to the press by someone, sport is full of leaks. I don't know why Rugby League thinks it should necessarily not be, but I don't know, Phil, if it's completely bloody obvious that when a decision's made by Super League and someone doesn't agree with it, and we know that the board of Super League consists of all these people who run these clubs, that these people from these clubs go running to their favourite journalist, whoever that is, tells them, and it ends up in some kind of print or web page or tweet or whatever.
I think it's probably even more basic than that. I think it's almost a microcosm of what is wrong with the governance of the game. There clearly is a huge level of mistrust within that meeting. Now, I don't think that necessarily reflects on the chairman of the meeting. I think he's got a near impossible task. But clearly, the people who are the representatives going into that meeting don't trust each other. So they're making sure, in some respects, that they get their retaliation in first. And I know of someone who's been in those meetings who said to me, "We've been in there talking about a certain issue, and then I've had a tweet from a journalist saying it's been reported on another channel that you've already decided this. Is it right?" And I'm going, how can you even know that? Because we're just discussing it at the moment. So clearly the level of contempt some people have for others in that meeting is manifested in the fact that they want to get information out there. I don't think that speaks very well of where we are with that body of people. I think there's also a concern that if it was just the one representative from each of the clubs, that's relatively easy to contain. But actually, clubs are now taking maybe 2 or 3 representatives into those meetings, and it's become far too unwieldy. So, of course, there are going to be leaks, but it just shows that they're not working together. And I think it also shows that this idea, this nominal phrase that we've talked about a lot, Scully loves it, for the good of the game. It actually doesn't exist at the moment. It's not something that people go into a behind closed doors environment and go, look, we're gonna have some frank and honest discussion. We're not going to agree on everything, but what we're going to release at the end of it will be for the good of the game. It's like, oh no, I'm not even bothered about the good of the game. I need to get my point across whether I'm going to win this vote or not. So no, it's pointless having an inquiry and investigation into it. You know the answer. You already know the answer. Don't put it out there in the public domain because you're just making yourself look more foolish. Just deal with it.
Was it Mrs. Merton who said, let's have a mass debate? Or was that somebody accrediting that to Mrs. Merton?
If she didn't, she probably should have done and could have done. I reckon that's a Partridgeism.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of and it will be a year ago, won't it? When Wakefield were due to play Catalans in the game which was called off because of the weather. And as you may remember, listener, the viewer, the week before, Catalans signed a player who Super League told the clubs not to speak about and told the players not to speak about, which was a bit of a bizarre thing to do because the players could have used their platform for good, and some did. You know, likes of Tom Johnston, well done to him. And Chris Chester did his press conference on the Thursday, I think it was, before the game. And I've never seen the press room at Bellevue that busy on a non-match day, because usually it's 3, maybe 4 people there. Because, you know...
No, that's the usual suspects.
Yeah, pre-match press conferences, the usual people are there. Not much happens. But TV there and everything. And Chris Chester's asked a question about a certain player, and he said, I've been told not to talk about it. And then there was the statement saying, oh no, we've not told anyone not to say anything. But they had told everyone not to say anything.
You can't have your cake and eat it. This wouldn't be a player who isn't going to see out his contract, is it?
I don't know. It depends.
As if we couldn't have guessed that was going to happen.
He's apparently not going to St George anymore for whatever.
No, he's apparently talking to Parramatta, which is not an indication he's coming home. I think the signing of Dean Farre, by the way. I know we're not talking anything to do with rugby because great signing. If he is fit, one of the best centres I've seen. Defensively, absolutely magnificent. Whoever plays outside him, bag full of tries.
Certainly on this programme, we had 2 and 2 together, and him moving in would suggest that someone would potentially move, especially at this stage of the season, you would think. But
who'd be a Palau fan? Talking things rugby league. Every week, Palau, who are bottom of the league, haven't got a win. They're ahead with 2 minutes to go and lose. They're my favourite team now.
Favourite team. Have we got a favourite team in the Spanish league, which has got lots of teams now?
Well, when it kicks off, I think we'll get something on that.
A fact-finding mission to the Mallorca Goblins. I do have a Mallorcan rugby shirt, but unfortunately it's the other code. I didn't realise they played rugby league there, but apparently they do now, which is good.
Good.
Right, that's that for this bit, because we've got to move on, because we've been to Wales and now we're off to... Scully always says to us that we've got to go to Cumbria and we never do, probably because it'll get us into trouble. But we have finally made the trip up there virtually, because we're speaking to Whitehaven, because they are looking forward to another season in the Championship, hopefully one that lasts longer than last season. And let's catch up with their assistant coach, Jonty Gorley, and the man behind the scenes, director, Andrew Canavan.
You had a lot of momentum going into the 2020 season with the joyous promotion, and you were looking like, irrespective of those first 5 results, you were starting to build on that. How difficult has it been to just put all of that on ice? I know it's been impossible for everybody, and you mentioned how hard it's been, but clearly for you, it must have had additional problems in just keeping that feeling going.
I think from a coaching point of view, well, obviously we had a great year the year before in 98, and we unexpectedly till everybody else won the league, and we obviously keep faith in the lads who got us there. And yeah, I think I've said it in a few interviews in the past 12 months. I really do think, as awful as COVID is, it was a bit of a blessing in disguise for Whitehaven, for us as me and Gaz as coaches, for them first few games we had. You know what I mean? We didn't get a point, did we? So the only teams who run close really was Widnes away, and we gave London the game away. And then at home, we struggled against Swinton and got, you know, we got beat by Swinton and got beat by Dewsbury. So it was going to be a long old season, I think. And we were improving, and then you get the odd game where the Toulouse come to Whitehaven and absolutely spanked us, which they were with a lot of teams. So it has been a sort of like, it was a massive learning curve for us as coaches with the squad we had, who are, like I say, there's a lot of them capable of playing, and that's why we kept faith in them in the Championship. But we did get let down late on by Boas, is it Assi, or the one we got let down by? Yeah. Late December in pre-season, he was coming over, and then all of a sudden he got a better offer from, I think it was Hunters. So he stayed in Australia. So we were like a month away from the season starting with our marquee signing for us, our halfback not coming. So that ended up us putting a bit of another pressure on Carl Dixon. It was his first season as a pro, and there's no doubt Carl's good enough to play Championship, but we didn't want to put a lot of pressure on him being the main half. So we had to put Callum Phillips back to 7. You know what I mean? And Callum's at Championship level. Callum's to me is out and out 9, and they'll see himself. So we started the season with halfbacks who maybe weren't ready for it just back then. You know what I mean? And I thought we were a bit light in the middle as well. So we've recruited well in the lockdown, especially the first lockdown. Give the club the due. They recruited really well. We obviously scoured the overseas and got some decent what we think is decent lads in there.
I think you've signed a player with the best name in the division for sure in Lachlan Walmsley. I mean, you've got part Lachlan Coop, part Alex Walmsley.
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
Not putting any pressure on him, but he's got to be a superstar, surely.
No, yeah. Obviously, when you're looking abroad for players and stuff like that, and fair play to them, they're coming for not a lot of money, which in my eyes is good, because they want to prove themselves in Championship and use us a bit like Sam Ops did, and use it as a stepping stone at Whitehaven to better themselves, which is great for us as coaches, because they want to come over here and absolutely kill it. So, and when you're looking at clips of Lockie, what he sent over, I just hope he replicates that when he starts playing, and looking at him in training, he has got that ability. So hopefully, yeah, he's got a good name there. Like,
does your recruitment for this year, which has been very cosmopolitan, Ryan King, really good pickup, does that say anything about the talent coming through in Cumbria? Did you reach a point where you felt you had to go outside the county? Because we do hear a lot about the amazing players that are being produced, and most Super League teams have got a Cumbrian presence in them. But are you now having to look in an alternative place for your players?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I really do think, and I maybe get shot down for this by people, but I really do think the player pool in Cumbria each year, I mean, I've had 3, this is my 3rd season at Whitehaven, and I had 5 at Working before that. And I really do think the player pool is getting smaller and smaller, even though we need to do something at an age group from the 16s onwards to make that player pool bigger again. You know what I mean? We lost a few lads at that age, 16, 17, who don't come back to the game. So, yeah, I think that's why it has sort of stuck out a bit, that there isn't a lot. Once over, you could go to a lot of these top amateur teams and pick players to go in the championship, but I really do personally, this is my personal opinion, there isn't that amount of players out there now that could step up the championship. League One's tough, and League One this year is going to be as tough as it's ever been, I think. So to go to League One and then the championship, it's tougher again. So that's my own personal opinion. I really do think that there maybe odd one or two, and say Carl Dixon, I can't talk highly enough for Carl. Carl's one of them players who I've got no doubt he'll hold his own in championship. But there's not many Carl Dixons knocking about in Cumbria at the minute.
He certainly didn't go to players last year, did he?
Yeah. So obviously that's why we've had to go to these lads from abroad, and like I said previously, they're coming for not a lot of money, so they're coming for the right reasons in my eyes. They're coming to prove themselves and to step on.
Andrew, we're obviously a year or so now without Rugby League, without fans coming into the ground. How tough has it been to keep the good ship Whitehaven afloat in that time?
It is difficult. You've got to try and be creative as you can, getting some content out there to keep fans engaged. But 12 months is a long time, and you can't really throw anything rugby related at them other than past seasons videos or things like that. It's been quite difficult to keep engaged with the fans, but we do have quite a diehard kind of support here, where there's a lot of fans. I mean, they are passionate about the club, and they're trying to help the club out as best they can. There's Berman, his vice president, Sean Drinkwater and Simon Taylor. They do theirs. Dave Farrell with his supporters trust and the ladies committee. They keep things going, keep churning things out, keep trying to engage with the club as well as the club trying to engage outwards. But it's just getting more and more difficult to try and supply them with content. There's just nothing going on, and last thing you want to do is keep putting out posts and comments that are related to the doom and gloom that the world seems to be in at the moment. It becomes a bit of a headache just trying to constantly get things out there to engage. But the support we've had from the fans has been really, really good. I can't thank them enough for what they're trying to do to stay with the club. Now, a lot of them are still interested, still coming. Well, when they could come down the office, still calling to the club on the phone or emails. It's been good for them that way, but it's certainly been a difficult period to keep them engaged with rugby at all, across all levels, really.
I guess that's the next challenge, isn't it? Not just for Whitehaven, but as you say, for every club in every division. Where you, without fans in any venue, in any sport, it's getting them back into the habit of coming down and supporting the club.
It is. Our hope really there is that they're missing it so much that they just want to come down regardless. I suppose some people at this moment in time, some people would just be pleased to be able to leave the house. I know I am. But no, we're obviously hoping that fans will be allowed back in as soon as we can. But with the streaming that's going on, let's just hope that keeps them engaged. Jonty and the coaching staff and the players staff put a performance on that. As soon as the fans are allowed back in, they'll come flocking.
I was going to ask Jordan, how hard is it going to be? Because it's all very well us sitting here going, we haven't been able to watch a game for a year, but when you're getting back into the realms of a physical contact sport, how much time should we give you all to become accustomed to training at the right level, playing at the right level, and being at your best?
I think it's pre-season. Oh, sorry.
I want to say it's pre-season as tough as it is when lads have only had like 8-9 weeks off. So you've got to sort of get them back into it gradually for the first couple of weeks, just after the normal off season. But when lads haven't been having contact for 10, 12 months, whatever it's been, we started training before Christmas. It was just purely cardio-based training. And we started back this week after a month's furlough, and we're just going to have to. We've had a talk, me and Gaz and the rest of the coaches. We're just going to have to take it a step at a time because their bodies need to get used to being banged again and being knocked about. And so it is. We're not going to go gung-ho like we have done in previous pre-seasons. We realise that we've got And then even after that, like you say, it's a different scenario again when the game starts. It normally takes 2 or 3 games normally to get up to speed. So God knows what it's going to be like. You don't want to get excuses off lads saying they're not playing well after 6 and 7 weeks. You want them somewhere near your speed 2 and 3 weeks in, don't you? So it's tough. It really is tough. Knowing how much training to give them, regardless of the physicality of it. So it's just a little step at a time each week.
I've been here since 2018. Sorry about that. And normally we've run with a squad of in the low 20s, 21, 22, 23 members of the squad. So this year we've consciously made a decision to go with a much larger squad of 30, because I think quite a few clubs speaking to them, they're expecting quite a few injuries, especially early on, with lads not playing for 12 months in some cases. So we've gone with a bigger squad this year. You know, if you look at Barrow last time they were in the championship, they went through 10 props, and that was coming off a 9-week break and then a 3-month pre-season. So, you know, I think a lot of clubs are, and like ourselves, have increased the squad size to try and deal with what's gone on and the potential injuries this is going to lead up to.
So I was just about to say, sorry, Phil, I was just about to say there when Andrew mentioned it, like last year, I think we had 5 out now front rows, and we've got like Dion and Tom Wilk and Carl Austin playing in the middle at loose forward. But we've actually got 8 out now front rows this year. But last week at training, there's 2 of them coming back from off-season ops, and there was another 3 with niggles that couldn't train already. Just little things that'll keep them out last week, they'll be training this week. But it's just running, but that was without contact. Like we had a couple of lads with foot injuries, you know what I mean? Just because of the cardio they've been doing. So we've got to adjust training to suit our needs, and like you say, just take it so gradually regarding the contact side of things. So the last thing we want to go in 21st of March, we'd only 2 or 3 available front rows. That'd be a mistake.
There are a couple of elephants in the room, and I know that Andrew, you quite rightly made the point. We don't want to dwell on anything that could be deemed doom and gloom, because there's enough of it around in the world at the moment. There's a big meeting this week of Championship and League One clubs, and I don't think it's any secret that the distributions going ahead are going to be lower, if at all, for clubs outside of the top flight. And the discussion starts to be had, how do you survive? One of those on the table is to amalgamate into one division. Is that something that you would be in favour of? I think you know what the second question is going to be following that up as well.
No, personally, we're not in favour as a board, not really in favour of amalgamating both divisions. You know, at the championship, it's tough every game. We found out last year, even just playing 6 of the championship clubs. You know, it's a big game every week, and no disrespect to anyone in League One. You know, you don't want to be playing a big game one week and then maybe two slightly weaker sides and going on. Also, on that, you're talking about potentially having a lot less money flowing down from the game, and that pot in the championship is going to just go down even more. You know, there's clubs at the top end of the championship. The players they're signing is really, really, really top quality. Adam Cuthbertson, Ben Jones Bishop, people of that ilk. You know, with these signings, what them signings do to an amalgamated division, would you still be able to make one if the money's further diluted? With the championships, the quality is increased every year. Every year that in this championship, it's getting to a point where the top teams. I mean, they're probably better than some Super League clubs a few years. No, not in the distant future, distant past. Sorry. So we're as a board, we're not really for that idea.
I mean, Gorley is one of the great Cumbrian names. Fantastic family tradition in the sport. You mentioned obviously that you've had time at the team whose name we dare not say on this podcast. There's so much talk about potential in Cumbria, but there's also a realisation that maybe there has to be a pooling of resource, however that's done. You don't want to lose the inherent rivalries. In fact, you can't afford to. But is there a case for saying, for Super League to ever come back to the county, there needs to be something you both feed into that is different, above you, that I hate to use the word that you become a part of but retain your identity, but is something different?
I think in the recent past, you've seen West Cumbria especially, it can only sustain one kind of successful club. When Worthington were flying high and got in the Super League and whatnot, Whitehaven were in the doldrums. When Whitehaven were in the mid 2000s, all like 30 seconds away from a Super League place, working at that point were in the doldrums. And then when both clubs are on even keel, they're a top League One, bottom half of the Championship kind of side. So from that point of view, as a neutral, can we sustain two quality sides? Not if we want to use local players, we can't. I think we just can't. In terms of any form of amalgamation, I'll just sit back and take a fifth on that and let others discuss.
I mean, Jonty, you know the people there clearly. You know, you are one of them. We know that Workington were in Super League in 1996. It wasn't greatly successful, and the region's never really recovered from that. And here we are, sort of, you know, over 20 years later, nearly. What does the sport in the region need to do to get an elevated presence?
Like Andrew's just mentioned there, like it's a massive thing for when working within in the top flight, even like the Stones beat the Championship even before Super League. The amateur games, I was one of them. I was going to town matches. I wanted to sign for town. My mates did, people younger than us did. You know what I mean? Everything. There was kids walking about with town shirts on. Now it's your Liverpool. You're back to your Liverpool shirts and your Man United shirts. And then I honestly do feel, and this is just as a supporter of rugby league, we need somebody in this area that's not better, but that's a better standard rugby league than what Whitehaven and Workington can offer on their own. That's my own personal view, and I'll say that till the cows come home, because you will definitely get a fan base to watch a good team coming to Cumbria to play rugby league. It's proved that with the World Cups at Durham Park. When we were in the good seasons, we had a couple of seasons, and then the Super League was a bit of a disaster. But in the Stones beat the Championship back then, everybody was going to games. It was like 3,000-4,000 home game against something like Wakefield. That's no disrespect to Wakefield, but you'll get a Wigan or a Leeds or a St Helens coming up, and there'd be 7,000 people in Durham Park. So I honestly, and the same when Whitehaven done well, what Andrew was on about there, when in the mid 2000s, there was 2,000 and 3,000 going to watch games when the OKRs were coming in, your Castlefords. So definitely the support base is there for the right product. Now, how we go about getting that right product, it's above my pay grade. You know what I mean? It's obviously the Rugby League would support it, but it's got to come from outside the Rugby League through businessmen or whatever, consortiums. I wouldn't know. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how to go about it. But everybody bangs a drum for this Cumbrian Super League team. And personally, Whitehaven and Workington can't do it on their own. And I would love, this is just me again, I would love them to keep their own identity, but there's something to aspire to for that young kid who doesn't want to travel down the motorway at 16 to Wigan, or, you know what I mean, to their academy and scholarships and such like. If we had the right structure in place, top to bottom, from age groups running, like I went to Australia in 2008 and I could not believe the structure that Penrith Panthers have got underneath them. There was something like 7,000 kids playing in like leagues from like under 5s to under 11s. And then there was a similar amount again playing up to the start, like the A grade sides around the area. It was just absolutely phenomenal what they come up with, and that's just under one club. So if all your top clubs over there locally to that Penrith district, they're playing at a real good standard. It's like a championship standard, the championship type team standards, and they're feeding Penrith, and that's how it works. And that's what, to me, in my eyes, Workington and Whitehaven could do that. They could be the teams that supply this elite team in Cumbria. Whether we get it's down to the player base again in it. As me saying before, we struggle to get 2 teams out of quality Cumbrians to compete in the championship, which Andrew just said I don't think we could. We both couldn't survive in the championship. It's either one or the other, because you know what lads are like. We've got lads with us now who's played for Workington. Whitehaven's got lads. Workington's got lads with them who's played for Whitehaven. So we're just mingling lads about every year, and there is a base there, but something needs to happen. It definitely does need to happen. And like I say, I don't know what it is. I really don't, but it'd be good to see. It would be.
I'm going to steal a question that Phil's just asked about Wales, and I guess you might not know the answer to this, but what more can the sport do to help develop the game up there in Cumbria?
I don't know, because I think that the RFL, they're not a bottomless pit. That they can't just say, "Are you Cumbria? Here's X amount of £1 million. Go ahead and sort the team out." I mean, I was all for Toronto because obviously they had their own money to sort out and put a team in and go through the leagues and do it correctly. It's unfortunate what's happened over there, and obviously I don't know the ins and outs of it, but that's what it's going to take. And for Cumbria to get that type of quality side, and it's going to be down to businessmen, money. The RFL haven't got the type of money, because if Cumbria got the money off them, somebody in London would want the money off them, somebody in Midlands would want the money off them. It just isn't. It's not a bottomless pit, is it?
No, it's got to come from inside West Cumbria. It's got to be a West Cumbrian-led thing.
Yeah,
nobody can just the RFL to keep pumping money into left, right, and centre. Like you say with Toronto, great ideas, but you go back to probably Newcastle. Really, the prime examples of building the right foundations first before the first team gets all the cash kind of thing. They've got thousands now playing from a base of none. They're probably the ideal club, if you like, of going into an area and building from the bottom and putting the right structures and the right things like that in place. So like I said, Toronto was a great idea. A lot of money, a lot of millions has been spent on that, but trying to build from the top down, it just surely didn't work. You need the foundations right. But in terms of Cumbria, it's got to be led from inside of Cumbria. You have the RFL's backing and support, but you can't be asking them for the financial help. It's got to come from the area. The area has to show that they're into rugby league and they want to back rugby league.
Here's the part where I throw out a stupid idea. But we know people from the RFL listen to this programme because they've told us, even though they don't say it publicly.
Only when they don't like it.
Only when they don't like it. Sean Wayne, the England coach, is looking for potential opponents ahead of the World Cup. The Exiles is something that's been mentioned, but how about we send England up to play a Cumbrian 13? Would that be something that could help the sport up there?
Were you involved in the Gary Purdon game, Jonty?
No, I was actually in Tenerife when that happened. I wasn't, unfortunately, but that great occasion. Great occasion.
We ran the nights close, didn't we? Was it a draw? Was a draw finished up?
Draw, yeah, it was a draw. Yeah. So so things like that, that's only going to get interest going. If that did happen down the line, absolutely brilliant. Because like you say, look at the World Cup. We played like Italy. Scotland played Italy, and it's no disrespect to them teams, but they wouldn't top fixtures in the World Cup, but they still packed capacity at Derby Park. So, like I say, any standard of rugby league, that's at a good standard. People will go out and watch it there. So something like that would be a great idea. That.
I mean, clearly any area, and you talk about it has to come from within, needs to look to the businesses that are prominent in that area, of which the NFL are the major employers and have been very supportive of the community game. But we heard stories where the wages that they pay actually stop people playing rugby league. That you want to remain part-time because you can get a good job with the NFL, so you don't want to become an elite rugby player. Is there some kind of accommodation there? You think that they could support rugby league and elite players could then go full-time, or are we living in another fanciful world here?
I think that's sorry, Andrew, go on.
No. I think it is quite fanciful because. That's at the end of the day, that's government money. It's taxpayers' money. Like BNFL do support, or it's now Sellafield Limited, but they do support the local area. But again, you're really asking the government. If you're asking them to try and prop up something like that or pump millions in, it's taxpayers' money. At the end of the day, it's not. That's not a business as such. Asking for taxpayers' money to set up a sporting club, really, it's not going to pass any vote in the House of Commons.
Now, I was just thinking that clearly the value of sport to its community is really high at the moment. That's what's got us the £16 million. That's where all this supposed Workington man idea comes from. And obviously now is a very good time to be going to government and say the value of sport in communities like yours and whether there is any help and support to bring elite sport to raise the profile of the region, to get other investors involved, because it is pretty hard when there is only one major source of income within the region. It's
true to a point. I just think the way actually Sellafield under the BNFL name used to sponsor the club quite well. Well, that finished with Acorn, what, 2017, I think it was, and we haven't really had any kind of injection from Sellafield or many of its partners really. Since then, a lot more is now based on socio-economic things. And as working in Whitehaven above, ran as like private limited companies, it's not something that they're willing to put money in. There was a hope. Jonty's aware of what I'm trying to do in terms of some youth stuff. If we can run this through a community foundation and get maybe not a full blown academy, but definitely get some structures put in there. I've had a couple of meetings with the RFL on this, and that's probably the route where people at Sellafield would help through their socio-economic budgets, but propping up limited companies as businesses, it's not something I don't think that they're willing to do. Never say never, hopefully, but from what the feedback we're getting, it's not something that's achievable at the moment.
Scotty's always telling us how passionate Cumbrians are for rugby league, and he keeps saying us to go up there and do a show, which we'll do one day when we're allowed out of our little hole to Jonty. But everyone talks about Wigan Saints and the whole derby and Leeds Bradford and whatever. You've been in the engine room at both those clubs. What is it like at a Workington Whitehaven derby?
It's obviously I played in the 0-0 draw on day after Boxing Day. I can't remember what year it was now. It was many moons ago. And I think there were 5,000 there that day at the rectory, and it was like, as a town player that day, it was like you wanted to be playing in that game, but you could feel the intimidation when you were going into the rectory that day. But it's like no other game. It's like no other game that season. You always look out to see when you're in the same division, the championship is always Good Friday. You know what I mean? And years gone by was always Boxing Day fixtures. So they're the fixtures you look at playing, and it's good that we've got the cup game, the Ike Southwood Cup game every year. If you're in different divisions, you know you're still playing them at least once. But I mean, when I was at town, it was brilliant because I think we won 7 on the trot out of the Dow. Sorry, Andrew, seven derbies on the trot. But then we come to Whitehaven. I think we had 3 or 4. Did we get 3 or 4 unbeaten then, Andrew, in the League One and that? So they are competitive. They are, and it's a typical rugby scenario. You're not allowed to be each other on the pitch for 80 minutes, but you're mates with them and you go for a pint after the game with them, type of thing. So, yeah, there's nothing better than the derby. If all the full weight leads up to it, like all derbies, there's something about them, isn't there?
Well, I've got to ask them. I've got to ask them, what do you like playing in a 0-0 draw? Because they're as rare as hen's teeth.
I wasn't supposed to play. I was out on the drink on Boxing Day. And I got a phone call off Peter Walsh, basically saying, "Get yourself on. Phil McKenzie's pulled his hamstring. You're playing tomorrow," because it was called off on Boxing Day, wasn't it? Because of the pitch. So they got it on, and it was. I think it was Kurt playing. Kurt Thompson was in the front row for Whitehaven, and Big Legs.
It was mid-90s, wasn't it?
And it shouldn't have been 0-0 actually, because a good mate of mine, Peter Dover, I'm from Flimby, just outside Maryport there, and I played at Flimby Rugby Club with Peter when I was younger. So Peter Dover was actually playing for Whitehaven that day on the wing, and I think it was Clayton Friend. I was right on line with it. It was on like the 20-metre line. Clayton cut about 3 or 4 people out right into Peter's hands. Only about 10 minutes left or something. I thought, oh no, that's it. Gone, game's gone. And it was a referee. Cummins. There's a Whitehaven fella, I know, and he for a forward pass, and I'm thinking, no way, that was not forward. It wasn't a forward pass. I thought, you'll do it for me, Stuart. But yeah, it was weird because there's Drummond pulled Seiji back, didn't he, down the railway end. Seiji was off for scoring, and I don't know what Des was like. He was about 10 stone, but he was as strong as ox, and he just seemed to pull Seiji up back of his shirt, and that was another tie saver. We were looking at that day town. We were looking to get a point. I think there was Whitehaven was only, you got 3 points of us that year. You beat us at Down Park and we drew it at Whitehaven.
I was just a bit of a kid when it happened, but everyone still talks about it now. You got more hair now than you did then. Everyone still talks about that game now. That wasn't. But I actually think it was about 2 minutes ago when he scored. It really was. But I remember walking past the grandstand when my dad he was taking us home, and he doesn't leave early, so it was really on the wire that try was disallowed.
It just like that was a blood and guts typical derby that day, and there was a great photo in the paper the week after, and Stephen Maguire. Stephen played at all the Cumbrian clubs, and we've got I know Stephen well, and I've got a great photo. He's got his hands all over my face when on one of the pages, typical Maggie. Yeah, but yeah, it was great times.
Well, I think the difference between in the derbies with Whitehaven working against obviously the Super League, big Super League derbies, Wigan, Saints, and the two Hull ones, is that even now most of the players are from working in Whitehaven, not playing. They knock hell out of each other, and the leading up to the rivalry on the pitches is just as much as the rivalry in the stands. Whereas you get your Wigan and your Saints, and most of them are from all over the place, aren't they? That kind of on the field rivalry, I don't think is as feisty.
So in terms of 2021, we will get back on the field. Obviously, when crowds can come in is going to be another issue. What do you set yourself as a goal? Is it solely to not finish bottom of the league? Are your ambitions more elevated than that? Are you looking at, we have to survive this year because there's so much uncertainty in 2022, so we can't plan any further than that? How will you approach the season when we do kick off?
Like, obviously, me and Charlo and the other coaches will talk about this with the lads, and we'll set goals and stuff like that. Now, I had an interview with Dave Farrelly last week, and I'll say the same thing tonight. I'm not going to stick my neck out on the block and say we're good enough to make the playoffs. I'm not going to do that. Whether I think that or not behind closed doors is a different matter. But realistically, for Whitehaven to stay in the Championship, it's a good season. If we do that, it's a good season. And then hopefully, if we do that, it's a stepping stone again. We'll build on that the year after. So the main goal is, without doubt, we've got to stay in the Championship. That's the, and anything that happens above that, great. 2019, all we looked for was a mid-table place. We end up in the league. I'm not saying we're going to do that this year, but Rugby League being Rugby League, things happen. You don't know what's around the corner. You don't know who you're playing and when you're playing and what injuries are going to have. It's you know what I mean. But yeah, the main goal is survival in the Championship. We'd have a great season if that happened. We've had a good season.
As a club, we've never really give any unnecessary targets and like that. Have we? We've just no pressure at all. Just we'll just survive, do what we can on the pitch. And we're obviously battling with limited resources compared to a lot of other teams. I know when we won League One, there were other teams spending 2 and 3 times on wages what we were. And we punched above our weights, but we went in with a plan of getting the best local lads we possibly could. Letting them gel, just letting them play rugby with no pressure on, and there you go. We end up winning the league. Similarly, last year, we put no pressure on. We obviously want to survive, and that's our aim again. It's just our primary aim is survive in that division and build on it. But if you're not ambitious, it's probably pointless being in sport. We all want to finish as high as we can, but without any pressure. We just want to get that survival and work out with 2022 Championship place and build on that.
Well, time has beaten us, but thank you very much for yours this evening. Jonty from the coaching side and Andrew from the business side of Whitehaven. We hope Hull is as well as can be in 2021.
One final quick question. The draw for the Challenge Cup is on Thursday. Is that a distraction, or are you going out to at least make the semi-finals of the 1895?
I think it's the same as the league. We'll take each game as it comes. Who wouldn't love to be 80 minutes away from Wembley? But I can't speak for the coaching staff, but I can imagine this is where they're going to, these two, potentially 2 cup games, is probably where they're going to get to see what their squad's going to look like. Without any friendly games, you got a 6-7 week window for pre-season. I just imagine we're going to use that and take it one game at a time. Like I say, we'd obviously love to make Wembley, but we're not going to put any pressure on anyone for that either. Jonty?
Yeah, I like to say, if that's going to be our first game, I would like to win it. So we get a game the week after in the Challenge Cup again, so we can give the lads a game who haven't played in that one. But it's obviously COVID. It's buggered the friendlies. We were looking at getting maybe 4 friendlies this year with the size of squad we've got. So no, regarding that, you want to win every game, like Andrew says, and you've got to be realistic which games you target and stuff. But yeah, I would like to go as far as we can. I was once, I think, Hunslet beat Town in somewhat. There was a plate final to get the Wembley one year. Hunslet beat us down there to get to Wembley. So it's a great for clubs like work it and then Whitehaven and like you on slits. It's a really realistic only chance we're going to get to go to somewhere like Wembley and play. So if we get that far, great.
Well, good luck.
Yeah, we wish you well in all endeavours in 2021. Hopefully, we'll be able to get up to Cumbria at some point in the future. And the best of luck for the year. Thanks for your time.
Thanks
very much. Cheers, lads.
It is the the area that gets brought up all the time, whether by players who were born there and now play their trade in Super League, or rogue club owners saying they're going to build a team there and never do, whether the Cumbrian Lakers. Maybe they've gone the way of Liverpool, I don't know. Cumbria, we can't solve the problem, but as they themselves have told us there, Phil, 2-1 doesn't necessarily, or 1-2, whatever way it is, the area can't support two teams at the highest level. So how do you solve that problem without the obvious answer?
Well, we mentioned the M word and got away with it. I think that there's two things that struck me from what was a very frank and honest interview. One is it's something you can now debate. I think there was a time where, they were told in 1995 they were merging insurrection. So that takes it off the agenda. Even though, interestingly, even in those days, the representatives of each club did accept the £1 million that they would have got to merge. They just couldn't bring it off. But I think there is a realisation now that something has to happen, and that it isn't merger. It's something that emerges out of what's already there, that's plays at a higher level. The other thing that I learned that I hadn't appreciated was that when one of the clubs is strong, invariably the other is weak. But when they're both strong, neither actually get the benefit of that. That you get the derby game that everybody wants to go to, but there aren't enough players to go round to sustain two clubs at a high level. Well, they've almost acknowledged the fact that if they want to be anything than they are at the moment, I think it was Jonty that said the best we could hope for would be both clubs would be lower end championship teams. Then if you want any more than that, and there clearly is a desire for more than that, because when the World Cup is played there, the crowd base is sustainable, then you have to do something about it. And all of, I think we tried to mention Sellafield and what could they do, and we were told, it has to come from within, it can't be external funding. Then if there's a willingness and a desire from within to be something other than they are at the moment, but retain what they've got, it might happen. And if it's built that way, let's make it happen.
Interesting times.
I've got a real concern that there is a meeting this week that may well see a shape begin to emerge for what 2022 begins to look like for the Championship and League One clubs, in the knowledge that they will get very little, if any, central funding, which I think we've been talking about for 18 months. Which doesn't make us clever. It's just like when writing's on the wall, you just have to look at the wall sometimes. And I think if those debates are starting to happen now, are we merging the Championship or League One? Are there going to be some casualties out of League One? There are some clubs that are not going to survive. So if clubs like Workington and Whitehaven can get together now to become a West Cumbria whilst retaining the best of Workington and Whitehaven, now is a really, really good time to do it. Because I would hate that we get to the point where we lose a Workington or a Whitehaven because the net's drawn in tighter and they fall out of it.
It's almost a situation where the two become feeder clubs but still autonomous and
play each other. So you've got derby rivalry, but the best players stay in the region. And again, I think it's something that doesn't need a big fixture matrix. You have Workington and Whitehaven playing on a Sunday. You have West Cumbria in whatever division they've qualified for playing on a Friday night, and then you get the best of both worlds. And we can do that in other areas. And I think, again, they've looked at Newcastle and said there's a sort of a model here. Both Newcastle and Cumbria had their academies taken away from them, and that I think was a blow. Because I think you desperately need that underpinning, and that is where the RFL can't necessarily do more because they haven't got the fans, but they can facilitate those academy teams playing against the likes of Wigan and St Helens and Warrington, and introducing kids of a younger age to a pathway that can take them to the top. But it's really, really important that potential is real. The signing of Akuma Tai by Newcastle is arguably one of the best signings of any club in any division, if it works. That is a real statement signing, because not only is he stepping down from Super League, which I think he still could have played in, but he's actually going to a club who are, at the moment before a ball is kicked, ranked last in the Championship. That's a measure of their ambition, and the fact that they think they can be up in the mix with the Toulouses and the Featherstones and the Bradfords and York and whoever else may be at the top. I think that if you mapped out Cumbria in the same sort of a way, with that kind of star name coming and playing for them, you've got something.
I'm still getting my, as you've mentioned, Bradford, getting my feet back on the ground that they might be going back to Odsal at some point in the future. I can't believe it.
No. I've been to the last game.
I know.
4 times.
What will this be, the first game at Odsal then? I'm
looking forward to the commemorative programme.
I know we'll have a load of them eventually. I'm trying to think of anything else that's happened. The interesting, you talk of merger. When I started my broadcasting career nearly 20 years ago, which is ridiculous, I might have ended by now. You never would have thought the two Ossett football clubs would have merged. But now there is Ossett United. There is no Albion and Town.
I think Damien Irvine hit on that last week in our podcast. There are some that are more natural than others. Any that is forced doesn't work. So North Sydney and Manly was destined to fail. But there are others. There'll always be staunch supporters of either side of a merger. But some do work. Some clubs have even won things as merged entities.
Oh, the sports minister's tweeted about footballers being racially abused. Why don't you just tweet about everyone being racially abused and not just footballers? But I don't know. Politics.
And sport. Oil and water.
Yeah. Unless they're giving us money, then we love them and they're great. I mean, we haven't mentioned the World Cup, which saying they're going to make a decision next month about what's going to happen. An unenviable position, because let's face it, as I think we were mentioning earlier, no one knows from day to day what the government are going to do next, and no one can predict what's going to happen. And I just hope we get a World Cup at some point in the future with big crowds and everyone's safe. That's the main thing.
There's a real willingness for it to go ahead outside of Rugby League. The government are making the right noises about it. They're supporting it financially. I think the wellbeing programs that are being woven into it, Assure are the latest sponsors to come on board. Brilliant. They're not going to do anything to jeopardise any of that work. It's going to be down to the vaccinations more than anything. If we are still in very restricted numbers in October, then clearly the virus is more virulent than we'd hoped it would be by that time. But they have planned for lesser crowds. I don't think they were going to sell out every venue, every game anyway. So if they could get still not far off the 750,000 they want in total, whilst also having some stadiums, so the problem we've got, as far as I can gather, is that when we come out of lockdown, I think we need to go like that when we say that. We're might be going back into the tier system, and if we go back into the tier system as it was, crowds of 4,000 were allowed in tier 1, crowds of 2,000 were allowed in tier 2. None of our stadia were in those two tiers, so therefore we would still be under no crowds. And unless it has come down to that, then that 80% of the World Cup is being played in the north of England. We do not know what restrictions are going to be applied, so they can't be expected to make a decision at the moment. I think it will, and I hope it does go ahead, even if there are slight areas of segregation needed in stadium to not to keep fans of different teams apart, but to just make sure there's sterile areas, or however they have to do it. But it can go ahead, because I think we can. Again, listening to Jonathan Liu on his podcast with Progressive Rugby League, he is talking about the impact that the World Cup could have for people like him that are slightly on the outside of the sport. And as someone who is a major feature writer in a broadsheet newspaper, he wants to cover it. It's big news. So yeah, we want to give him that opportunity to do so.
It's an event.
It's an event, which is what we said at the beginning.
People want to go see England versus Greece in Sheffield at Bramall Lane. People want to go see that. They don't care.
People want to go and see England-Brazil in the women's game, even though Brazil have no pedigree at the moment whatsoever. They want to see it because they want to be there when the first South American nation runs out a traditional ground. And even if they get beat by 50, 60, 80 points, I don't care. It happens in every other sport. Just relish the fact that you will be seeing those famous Brazilian colours playing the sport that we love. Embrace it.
I think I'm double booked and might miss that one, which is a crying shame. But it's interesting, is it? And as you say, and as we've said before, teams win by 100 points. It happens.
I can remember in the Rugby Union World Cup. Sorry, I've just washed my mouth out. New Zealand beat Japan by 140 odd one year. Nobody batted an eyelid. And now, however many years down the line from that happened, didn't Japan beat South Africa and everybody said it's the greatest result? Like, there's a process you've got to go through.
Although it does amuse me when they say Italy should be relegated because they're rubbish, but if Scotland had finished bottom, they wouldn't want them relegated because then they wouldn't have the Calcutta Cup.
Relegated for who, though?
Well, Georgia. Used to be Romania, didn't it? But since Ceausescu got his head chopped off.
Right. So Georgia are on somebody's mind, are they?
Apparently, yeah. Rugby Union, a sport
one for the teenagers.
One for the teenagers. Speaking of Rugby Union, here's Brian Moore. He's from Halifax. Just spent an hour on the tube wearing a mask. Strange, I didn't feel dehumanised, enslaved or controlled. I think that's because those claims are bollocks. So Brian Moore there, speaking more sense than some involved in the sport of Rugby League at the moment.
Well, he's from Halifax.
He's from Halifax.
So, and he is quite a fan of Rugby League.
He's the second most famous person at Halifax after Tom Maguire.
Wow.
I don't know whatever happened to him. I don't know.
No, his name rings a bell.
No. He's too busy putting together lists of numbers and shirt names and stuff. Well, at least everyone's getting the squad numbers out now, which is exciting. But Salford's away kit's still not out. So I don't know what's going on there. Which I think is about the point where we just run out of things to talk about in Rugby League. Unless you can think of anything else as I doom scroll through Twitter.
Well, we're going to get a cup draw this week, which we mentioned to our guests, which is good. That gives us something to look forward to. There's dates penciled in for those matches. May well be behind closed doors, but, players need something to aim for. Fans need something to look forward to. And I think there is a little bit more optimism that we are going to get something on the field. I think the doubts now surround when you can have people in the stadiums to watch it.
Well, it shows you how quickly things have changed and change all the time on this, isn't it? Because when the football season started late, there was the assumption that eventually there would be crowds back. We're coming towards the end of the Premier League Football League season, and there's still no indication of when we will see anyone in those grounds, and they've gone a whole year without crowds. Ice hockey, their Elite League season, cancelled. People not happy about that. Season completely scrapped. No games at all. They didn't even finish last season. They've not started this season.
But the good news is the Netball Super League starts this week, and there might be a familiar name in the fixtures.
And apparently half of it's been played in Wakefield, although as a check, it's not Wakefield, it's South Kirby, which is not really Wakefield. But
all right,
is
there a stadium there?
Apparently there's some studios or something. So
yes. The biggest film set makes film sets.
So there you go. So
brilliant.
So yeah, I mean, obviously 100% behind the only team from Yorkshire.
I think there are two. I think
there are two now.
Yeah, no. But I think there's only one from West Yorkshire.
Yeah, but
you won't be shouting for them. I can't see that word rhinos coming out of your mouth.
As we know, I mean, it's bad enough.
What I would say is, isn't it great to see one of our clubs vested interest. Diversifying into another sport, because that is the way to get your brand noticed to a new audience. How do you know that all of these netball people that follow Leeds Rhinos netball, that have now got a license to play in Super League, wouldn't spend the odd Friday night watching that same brand play a different sport at a venue that is iconic? It all sort of fits. That's where the future is going to go. It's not going to be remaining what we currently are.
Better than having a second division rugby union team. I still don't understand why they never called them that. It would have made more sense.
No.
But there's probably more crossover between netball and rugby league than rugby union and rugby league. Well, Danica's played netball. She told us last year.
Well, there you go.
I bet she's really pleased that boxing got cancelled.
She's just annoyed at the moment that she chose to live in a village with lots of hills, because she can't stand up at the moment.
God bless teachers.
As you can read in her column in Forty20 magazine out this week.
Anything else in it that you haven't mentioned?
Nothing. Well, there's a nice feature on Albania, but that again is amongst a whole plethora that covers the game from every angle and perspective, bearing in mind there basically is no game.
No, I mean, as this podcast has done today, Wales and Cumbria. I mean, they're millions of miles away. We haven't got a map. I should have a map behind me. I've not got a map to point that out. We will do a Canadian show at some point. Just waiting for our guests to be able to find.
Oh, there's a bit of an article from Canada in the magazine.
Oh, there you go.
Which is the fans over there's reaction to what's happened, because I think they've all been forgotten in all of this. There's been plenty of fans here that have said,
especially with their tickets.
Want them. But there were 10,000 people attracted to a sport that had it taken away from them, and we get some reaction from it's. I think the word is damning.
Damning. Where's the positivity, Phil? Where's the positivity?
Well, no, the positivity is they want to stay involved. They love.
Oh, that's good then. Yeah.
They got drawn into it, and they're damned annoyed that it got taken away from them.
Well, they can't even watch the CFL because that's on in a minute. Well, they can go watch Ottawa when
they don't kick off.
Has Lauren Fresno got the French job yet? Is that still?
I don't think officially, but the word on the Le Grapevine, or Le Vine de Grape, is that he probably will.
I've run out of TV to watch. I found myself watching Floyd on France via the iPlayer, which is still the high watermark of television.
Does he have a little slurp?
Just a couple.
I loved Keith Floyd.
He plays rugby in one episode on the Britain and Ireland, but it's the other rugby, so I can't even shoehorn that into my column. But never mind, I will find something to talk about. Phil, I think we're done.
It's been a pleasure. It always is.
I don't know when we'll be back, because it depends on how active I am at finding people to speak to us. But I'm sure we will at some point, because as we keep saying, there's nothing happening.
No,
so
we want to do
anything.
We want to do it when we've got guests like we've had today, who wouldn't normally get the oxygen of publicity, and I've got something really interesting to say.
All our usual journalist people will be back when there's stuff to talk about on the pitch, but at the moment there's
no pitch.
No,
and the pitch is looking out the window, covered in snow.
Let's have a look. Oh, keep stopping and starting in here as I look in the leafy suburbs of fantastic Wakefield. But never mind. Thanks for watching and viewing. Buy the magazine out this week. And that's it. Yeah, bye. Like, share, subscribe. Oh dear.